提升口语最好的方法就是多说话，而有意义的对话就是最好的练习。So a meaningful conversation happens when you truly get to know the other person and move towards friendship in some way, right? And the more meaningful the interaction, the more emotionally invested you'll be, and the more you'll learn and remember from that interaction. Therefore, the more you'll progress. So I'm going to teach you 50 natural sounding Mandarin phrases you can memorize to make meaningful conversations quickly and easily with any Chinese person you meet, either face-to-face or online, so you can level up your speaking fast without stressing about what to say and when. So I've divided up these 50 Mandarin phrases into 5 easy steps for making conversations. And the first step is breaking the ice. So starting a conversation from nothing with a stranger. So whether you're starting a chat with a language exchange partner, or toughest of all, just at an event of some kind and need to make small talk with someone in Chinese, try out one of these phrases to get a conversation going. So let's start with something really easy. 你好 or 您好. That's the polite version of hello there. And then you just follow up with 很高兴认识你, happy to meet you. 很高兴 is happy, 认识你 to meet you. And then 我是 I am. 我是 Luke. And then of course you're shaking hands. Shaking hands is completely normal in China, by the way. And then you might follow up with 你叫什么名字? 你叫什么名字? What is your name? So there are a few elements here, right? Just saying hello, 你好, with a smile, of course, and shaking someone's hand, saying 我是, and then your name, introducing yourself, telling them your name, and then asking what their name is, 你叫什么名字? And then, of course, the 很高兴认识你. These several elements can be mixed around to some degree. And you can, for example, remove the 很高兴认识你. So maybe you could wait until they've given you their name. Once you've exchanged names, it's very common to then say 很高兴认识你. So I could say 你好, 我是 Luke. 你叫什么名字? And then they tell me their name. And you can also say 很高兴认识你 at the end of the entire conversation when you're finishing the entire thing and you're saying goodbye, but we'll get to that later on in the video. So that's kind of like the set phrase to start any conversation in Chinese. Let me give you a few more ways of either starting a conversation or quickly following up after you've exchanged names and said how happy you are to meet each other. So one might be if you meet multiple people, like 2 people, for example, at the same time, you might say, 你们怎么认识的? 你们怎么认识的? How did you guys meet? Or if you've seen the other person before but never been formally introduced, you might say something like, 我想我们之前在 whatever place 见过吧? I think 我想 we 我们之前 before 在 whatever place at whatever place seen each other 见过吧? So you're sort of, haven't we met before at this place? 我想我们之前在图书馆见过吧? I think we've met before at the library, right? Another great way of starting conversations is just going up to someone, even before you're saying hello, right, in Chinese, and just saying, oh, I like your thing, whatever you've got, like a handbag or maybe a dog or some sort of accessory. You just say, 我喜欢你的 blah, blah, blah. I like your thing that I'm pointing at. People love compliments, right? Immediately opens them up. And you could say also, 你在哪里买的? You can immediately follow up with that. 你在哪里买的? Where did you buy it? 我喜欢你的手表. 你在哪里买的? I like your watch. Where did you get it? Where did you buy it? By the way, don't forget to click the link in the description below and download the PDF and amazing audio files, that's studio quality, non-AI, male and female audio files for all of the examples that I'm sharing in this video, plus several more bonus examples, just so you can practice on the go and really acquire what you're learning here today. Oh, and while you're at it, might as well give this a like and subscribe and share it with someone that might find it useful. Here are 3 more quick fire icebreakers you can try out, really solid phrases just to break the ice and remove any awkwardness when you first meet a stranger. 你是和朋友一起来的吗? Did you come with friends? 你是和朋友一起来的吗? 你怎么知道这个活动的? How did you find out about this event? You notice that most of these phrases here have a d at the end, or they have the sh, de construction. That's a grammatical thing in Chinese when you're specifically asking about something, often in the past. a specific event or something that happened. So how did you find out about this event? 你怎么知道这个活动的? That the signifies that it's in the past, and it's specifically asking about a certain thing. And one more, 你之前 you before 来过 come before 这里吗? 你之前来过这里吗? Have you been here before? I know this one is a bit cheesy, a bit sort of old hat to many of you. Have you been here before? But it works a treat. So try it out. So those are the icebreakers. That's pretty much all you're ever going to need to break the ice with someone in Chinese. Let's move on to the next step where you ask a sincere question. Not just ask any question, but ask a question like genuinely, I want to find more out about you. And of course, the best way of coming across as genuine is to be genuine. I actually want to get to know someone. I want to connect. I want to have a meaningful interaction right here. So I like asking sincere questions because it makes everything more authentic and it makes everything more meaningful. And therefore, not only will you build friendships, but you'll learn more language from the interaction. So the best kind of sincere questions are actually open questions, not yes, no questions with specific answers, as they encourage the other person to share more interesting information and more information so you can get to know them. However, it's a good idea to keep some standard, what I call back pocket questions that may not be as interesting and more on the closed side, but are great in emergencies in case the conversation starts to die out. So here are the best ones to keep ready when the conversation becomes a little bit strained or you start to run out of things to say, which can of course happen. So the first one is 你是哪个国家的? You are which country? So this the here is signifying what do you belong to. So it's more of a possession particle in this case. 你是哪个国家的? This is, in my experience, the most common way that Chinese people ask you where you're from. But of course, you wouldn't ask Chinese people this question because the answer is they're from China. I mean, they could also be from like Malaysia or Taiwan, right? But generally speaking, it's going to be pretty obvious where they're from. So if I was asked this question, 你是哪个国家的? I would answer 我是英国的 or just 英国的 England 的. Just repeat that 的 again. I belong to England. Another really common way of asking where someone's from that you may be asked is 你来自哪里? 你来自 means come from. 哪里 where? You come from where? I know Chinese grammar, a little bit different from English grammar. And then you can just answer 我来自 whatever country. 英国. It's a good idea to look up your country in Chinese, just memorize that. 我来自英国. Now, when you ask Chinese people where they're from, or when Chinese people ask other Chinese people where they're from, they don't say 你来自哪里, really, or 你是哪个国家的, because they usually know where they're from, like in terms of what country. What they will ask is 你是, you are 哪里人 where person. You are where person. Right? So that's asking where in China are you from? China is vast, right? It's absolutely huge. So different parts of China, different provinces will immediately indicate certain characteristics about each person. Oh, Shandong is famous for this, or Beifang, like northern China, is more famous for this, or that's usually this kind of person comes from there. Oh, it's very cold up that part of the country at this time of year. Like it gives you so many ideas about the person instantly. And Chinese people kind of know a lot about different provinces and different people from different provinces. So it's one of the first questions that any Chinese person will ask about each other. And it's one of the first questions that you could ask them too. And over time, you'll grow to understand all these different intricacies of the different weather and the food and the cultures of these different provinces in different parts of the country. Another really good back pocket phrase is 你做什么工作? You do what work? 你做什么工作? So in China, once you know someone's name or what they like to be called, it's a good idea to use that often, right? And put it at the beginning of any questions. So you might say 老王, right? 老王. That might be a common sort of structure that you might hear, 老, and then their last name. Or 小 is also another one, and their last name. 小 means small, 老 means old. Another one might be something 哥, so their last name, their 姓, followed by 哥. So 拜哥 is a friend of mine. His last name is 拜, and he prefers to be called 哥, like older brother at the end. So everyone has their own sort of xiaoming, small name, their nickname, if you like, thing that they like to be called. I have another friend called Lao Liu, right? Lao Liu, old Liu. And he's not old. It's just, that's how he likes to be called. It's kind of weird, but it's just how it works in China. So once you know someone's name or what they like to be called, and if they're older than you, by the way, you might just say, Ayi, right? Ayi, for example, is for a lady around your mother's age, right? You just call Ayi. You know, it's probably not the best to address them by their first name. So you might say, Ayi, 你做什么工作呢? That n on the end can soften things. All right. So, or 拜哥, 你做什么工作? Or 老刘, 你做什么工作? Right. So try and put their name at the front of questions, and it makes it just not necessarily more polite, I guess more polite, but just friendlier. Right. And it's and people love the sound of their name, right? So it's just going to connect you a little bit more to them. Another good back pocket phrase, if someone is younger or you're aware that they are studying in some place or in some way, you could ask them, 你在哪里上学? Where do you go to school? 你在哪里? You where? 上学. On school. 上 school. Another great sort of fixed back pocket phrase would be, 你家 your home 住在哪里? Lives where? And it sounds a bit weird. Your home lives where? But that's how you ask someone where they live. That's one of the ways you can ask them. 你家住在哪里? Where do you live? And when you ask that, you're not asking which part of China, of course. You're asking where in this town or village or city do you live, roughly? Like, what's the area? So those fixed questions are fixed, but they're also really good because not only they're really common and easy to answer, they open up a lot of follow-up questions. And just as a spoiler, follow-up questions is the next step in this process. But before we do that, let's get on to some more open style questions that you can ask, sincere questions to really get a conversation going in Chinese. And the first one I got for you is 你觉得 you think something, whatever thing, place, activity, 怎么样? What do you think about this thing or place or activity? So for example, 你觉得这个电影, this movie, 怎么样? So just remember that structure. 你觉得 something, 怎么样? 怎么样 means how about. 你觉得 means you think or feel. 你觉得这个电影怎么样? People love being asked their opinion about stuff, right? As well as hearing their name. So it's just a great one to keep prepared for when you want to start and maintain a good conversation. Another one that's a slight tweak or slant on that last question would be 这里的 thing or activity 怎么样? Right? 怎么样 is a really common one, right? That we're going to need to use a lot. How about this thing or activity here? How is the thing or activity here? So, for example, 这里的咖啡怎么样? How is the coffee here? 这里的食物怎么样? How's the food? Another really good structure you can use for asking sincere questions is 你听说? Have you heard about? 听说, literally, listen, speak is is the word for heard about. 你听说 some issue or some news story 了吗? Le is completion of an action, so it's indicating something has already happened in terms of a grammatical structure. 你听说最近的台风了吗? So 最近 is recently or the recent, and 台风 is typhoon, right? So 你听说最近的台风了吗? 你听说了吗? Just remember that structure. So remember here you're asking about a specific thing that might be relevant to them in some way. So either, something's happening in China, something's happening in another country that's sort of big news, or something's happening locally. So you could ask, for example, 你听说他要来这里办演唱会了吗? Right? So that's a really long one. 他要, right? So 他 would be him or her, like some sort of artist. 要来这里 wants to come here or is going to come here. 办演唱会, like having a concert or hold a concert. 了吗? Right? So you can really fit in whatever you like there. You can prepare a few phrases in advance if you want to get the hang of it first before asking someone the question. Another great sincere question is 你怎么看? 你怎么看? You, how, look at, and then just add whatever topic you want to talk about. And this is one that I really like using because it's very broad. And it's just very succinct and short. It's like, how do you feel about this, right? And it just encourages them, it pushes them, it puts the pressure on them to share lots. And the more they share, the more you can follow up with, and the more follow-up questions you'll be able to have. Oh, I'm giving away the next step in the video. But yeah, 你怎么看 topic, or 你对 topic 有什么看法? There's two ways of asking the same thing. Like, what do you think about, or what are your thoughts on this topic? Let's give a few examples. 你怎么看这次的选举? 这次 this time 的选举, right? This time, this election. What do you think about this election? 你怎么看这次的选举? Or you could get a bit more formal, a bit more political, or a bit dangerous. 你对这个政策有什么看法? So what are your thoughts about this policy? 政策 means policy. 你对这个政策有什么看法? So that 你对 is 对 means to face something, right? So we use it a lot when you're talking about referring to a specific thing. 你对这个政策有什么看法? Have what? 看法, like look method. Look method means essentially way of thinking or thoughts about a certain thing. Another great one to use would be 你有没有看过 something? 你觉得怎么样? 你有没有看过阿凡达? 你觉得怎么样? Have you seen Avatar? What do you think of it? 你觉得怎么样? Right? What do you think about it? 你有没有看过击剑比赛? Have you seen fencing or a fencing match before? And if the answer is yes, you can say 你觉得怎么样? If the answer is no, 没看过, then you could start talking about that. Another one that I love using is asking about them, but in the past. What have they done before? So when was the last time you did X or saw X or had X? So 你上次 do something 是什么时候? So 你 you 上次 last time do something 是 is 什么时候 when? Right? That sounds a bit like caveman language, doesn't it? You last time do this when? Right? So that's how we say it in Chinese. So for example, 你上次去旅行 go traveling or went traveling 是什么时候? So you just need to figure out what you want to ask. 去旅行 means go traveling, go on a trip of some kind. Just put that in the middle. 你上次回家乡是什么时候? When was the last time you went back to your hometown? So it's really common in the modern world, all over the place, in the West as well, that people are not living in their hometown. Like people tend to be born a certain place, especially younger people, say, oh, I want to go here to work or whatever. But in China, it's especially common, right? Because all the money is in the cities. It's like people working online is becoming more common in China too. But generally speaking, if you're from a village or a town, you generally go to a bigger town or a bigger village to make more money, right? It's just super, super common. Often, if you're talking to someone within a certain town or city, they are not from that place. Very unlikely, actually, that they are local, right? So when you ask someone about their 家乡, their hometown, or another way of saying 家乡, hometown is 老家, old home, right? When you ask someone about that, it, of course, brings up all kinds of memories, often positive, and opens up all sorts of follow-up questions that you could ask about their hometown. All right. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask. Now, for a bit more meat and potatoes, you could just say 周末 weekend 打算 plan 做什么 do what weekend plan do what, right? Caveman language. Love it. What are your plans for the weekend? Another really good one is 你能给我 can you give me 推荐 suggestion and then add whatever thing or activity ma, like the question mark at the end there. Can you recommend some activity to me? Again, really good one because it asks them about their opinion on something, right? Which people love to give, right? So 你能给我推荐一本书吗? A book. It's great if you're talking about books. You know the person's interested in books. 你能给我推荐一部电影吗? 一部电影. So that's the measure word for film or movie in Chinese. Everything has a measure word. So 书 is a book and 本 is the measure word for book. So you don't just say 一书. I mean, you could say 一个书. 个 is like the universal measure word that applies to pretty much everything if you can't remember the measure words. But if you do remember the measure word, it's going to sound better, right? But it's absolutely fine just to use 个 for everything, right? So 一个书 is okay. but 一本书 is better, or 一部电影 So 你能给我推荐一个书吗 is fine, but 你能给我推荐一本书吗 is better. So those are my favorite more open and less open sort of sincere questions you can ask, or structures that you can use to create any multitude of questions that you like to really get a conversation going. But once you've asked those and you've got an answer, then it's time to follow up questions. It's like sort of fanning the flames of the conversation and getting them to open up a little bit more. So when you ask a follow-up question or multiple follow-up questions, it shows that you are super interested in what they have to say, which people generally love. So here are my favorite follow-up sort of question patterns that you can imitate. So the first follow-up question sort of structure that I like a lot is 你的 thing or place 是什么样的? So 什么样 is more like saying, what is something like? Tell me about it. 你的 thing or place 是什么样的? So for example, you found out someone is studying and 你的学校在哪里? You've already asked them, where's your school? Or 你在哪里上学? Where do you go to school? And they tell you, and you say, next follow-up question would probably be, 你的学校 your school 是什么样的? What is your school like? Or 你的家乡 or 你的老家 your hometown 是什么样的? 你的城市 your city 是什么样的? Right? So just insert whatever thing sort of pops up in conversation here. Another follow-up question structure that I really like, that I use a lot, is 你最喜欢 you most like, or your favorite, whatever interest or field they've mentioned, 的哪一点? 你最喜欢 something 的哪一点? So that 的 is like saying of this thing, like 哪一点, which point do you like the most? What is your favorite thing about this thing that you talked about? So for example, 你最喜欢摄影的哪一点? 摄影, maybe they told you they are a 摄影师, a photographer. So you might say 摄影 photography. What's your favorite thing about that? And maybe they told you they're learning mathematics in university. 数学, 我在学数学. I am studying mathematics. You could say 你最喜欢数学的哪一点? What's your favorite thing? What do you like most about mathematics? Or you could ask a almost bordering on dumb question that's so broad. 你最喜欢音乐的哪一点? Like, what do you like most about music? I mean, that's actually so broad that it's like, whoa, that's deep, that question. What do I like most about music? You know, so it really gets people sort of thinking and answering questions from the heart in a sincere way. Another sort of follow-up question that is similar to the last one, but different enough that it warrants its own separate sort of phrase mentioned here, which is whatever interest they mention or job or field that they're in, just say that and then add 涉及什么? Like 涉及 is connected with or involved with what? So what does your job or field or area of study or hobby involve is what you're asking here. 你的工作领域涉及什么? So what does your job field, 领域 is like field. What does your job field involve? 你的专业 your major, 涉及什么? What does it involve? Right? It's broad enough that it really gets them saying a lot, or hopefully mentioning a lot of details about what their major is or what their job is. So here are a couple of follow-up questions you can ask specifically for when someone is telling a story of some kind or recounting events. 然后发生了什么? 然后 is after that, or and then 发生了什么? Happened what, right? Or occurred what? What happened after that? 然后发生了什么呢? Right? So you're interested in what they're saying. What happened next? And then once you get to the end of a story, just to show interest and to be like, well, okay, like, give me the climax of this story. What happened in the end? You could say, 最后结果怎么样? 最后 means at the end. 结果 like conclusion. 怎么样? How about the conclusion? How was the final result? What happened in the end, essentially? So one of the most common topics is work. It's what most of us do for half of every day of our lives, or while we're not retired, or while we're not kids. So it's a really big subject. So here are some specific follow-up questions you can use specifically relating to work. 你现在工作怎么样? You now work, how about? So how's your job going now? So maybe they've told you something good or something bad, or when you've asked them about their 工作设计什么, like what does it involve? They told you something positive or negative about the past. So you might say then, okay, so how's your job going now? Like day to day, how is it going? And then if you find that maybe you're talking about work a bit too much, you want to get off the topic, you can switch to another one by saying 你不工作的时候, like when you're not working, 都做些什么? 都 is like referring to the entire time when you're not working. 做些什么? What do you get up to? This is an interesting structure. 都做些什么? It just sounds weird when you first hear it. All, like 都 is all, do, 做一些 some, 什么 what. All, do, some, what. It sounds weird, and it is kind of weird as a structure, right? But it's just a fixed phrase. Just remember that fixed phrase. 都做一些什么? It's just like a soft, sort of gentle, friendly way of asking what you're doing or do. It's more like, what do you get up to, right? When you're not working. 都做一些什么? 你不工作的时候都做些什么? And if they're talking about hobbies or their work, some sort of skill that they have, you could say, 你是怎么学会 some skill 的, right? So there's that 的 again. It's very common here because, again, we're asking about the past and we're asking about something specific. So, for example, 你是怎么学会弹吉他的? 弹吉他. 吉他 is guitar and 弹 is to play the guitar, so play guitar. 你是怎么学会弹吉他的? So those are all my favorite open sort of follow-up questions that you can use and apply to any conversation to keep it going pretty much as long as you want until the other person gets sick of you, right? But there are more closed style follow-up questions that I want to share too. And although they are closed, that's generally not preferable overall, they are good to remember because they offer so much more follow-up opportunity. Let me show you what I mean. You could ask a question just like, 你喜欢 something, 吗? Like, do you like this thing? It's really basic. It's really standard. But if they say yes or no, you could just ask, 你为什么不喜欢呢? Or 你为什么喜欢呢? Like, why do you not like it? Or why do you like it? Or 你喜欢 something 的哪一点? Like, what point do you like about that thing? All right. So, and also add some just variety to the conversation. 你喜欢吃辣的吗? Do you like to eat spicy food? Or 你喜欢吃辣的食物吗? That's the full way of saying, do you like spicy food? Then, of course, we have the structure, 你喜欢 A 还是 B? Right? So, which do you prefer, essentially, is what you're asking here. 你喜欢看电影还是看书? Do you like watching movies or reading books? 你最喜欢的运动是什么? What's your favorite sport? 你最喜欢的食物是什么? What's your favorite food? Another one that's not as common, but you can still break it out every now and then would be, you are, 你是 A type of person 还是 B 的人? Right? So you could say, 你是外向还是内向的人? Are you extroverted or introverted? 你是乐观还是悲观的人? Are you optimistic or pessimistic person? 你是幽默还是严肃的人? Right, so are you a humorous or a more serious kind of person? All right, so those are all of the follow-up questions you'll ever need to keep a conversation going for pretty much as long as you want in Chinese. But the next step to a really good conversation is to share something of your own, to share your own opinions or feelings about something. Because otherwise, if you just keep asking questions, I've had this before, and maybe you have too, where someone has like read a book on how to have conversations and they just keep asking questions and asking questions. And it's great at first, but then after a while, it just starts to feel like you're being interrogated. So you got to make sure you share something. Otherwise, it's just not very natural sort of feeling conversation. So it's a great idea to share some info about yourself every now and then. And a great time for this is maybe after you've heard their answer to a follow-up question, and then you can just sort of share your agreement or disagreement with what they said, and then offer your own opinion or thinking on a particular subject. So a really standard way of doing this is just using the word also, right? 我也喜欢 I also like. 我也喜欢这个节目。I also like this show. Or you could say 我不喜欢 I don't like. Or 我不太喜欢 For example, 我不太喜欢看恐怖电影 I don't particularly like watching horror movies. Another great one is 我也 I also 这么觉得 think like this or like this think. So you're saying I think so too. Or you could say 我不这么觉得我不这么觉得 Like the 不 here kind of feels like a fifth tone. Just goes neutral when you say it quickly. 我不这么觉得 I don't think so. You could also say 我觉得 something or other 太 something 了 Like is to some sort of adjective. So for example, 我觉得这个地方太吵了 This place is too noisy. 我觉得那部电影或这部电影太长了 I think this movie or that movie is just too long. 我觉得这个问题太复杂了 I think this question is too complicated or this problem is too complicated. The 问题 in Chinese, that word means problem and question. So 觉得 is a word for think in Chinese, but it's more on the side of feel. So, and you can tell that by the characters. So 觉 is feeling. It comes from the word 感觉 to feel in Chinese. So it's more like thinking from here or then maybe down here instead of from here. And it's less defined. It's less definite. It's more like I feel this way about this thing. Whereas this next word is more sort of cold and calculated. Sort of this is how I feel. And it's when you want to express, you could say a more definite opinion about something that's been thought through. So for example, 我认为这个节目很有趣 I think this show is very interesting. Right? It shows that you thought about it. That is your rather, not necessarily strong opinion, but it is a thought through, definite opinion on something. 我认为这个活动很有意义 I think this event is very meaningful. You might say that at some sort of charity event, helping underprivileged people of some kind. And of course, you could say 不认为我不认为这个节目无聊 I don't think this show is boring. So that's how you would sort of share your opinion, keep the conversation going, but also, make it a conversation and not like a job interview. The next step is ending the conversation. So as the conversation comes to its natural end, or you have to end it for some reason, then it's a good time to set up the next meeting. This can often be based on what you spoke about. For example, if you were talking about food in Chinese, maybe next time meet for lunch. 下次要不要一起去吃饭? 下次 next time 要不要 do you want 一起 together 去吃饭 go eat. Next time let's go eat together. So just remember that phrase 下次要不要下次要不要 Next time, do you want? And then add in whatever thing you want to do together. Or a slight tweak on this is 我们 we 下次一起去 do something 吧 right? So that 吧 is like a suggestion on the end. Let's go to a place or do something together next time. 我们下次一起去海边吧 Let's go to the beach. Maybe you were talking about the beach in conversation. You want to say, let's go to the beach together next time. 我们下次一起去吃火锅吧Let's next time together 一起去吃火锅 go and eat hot pot, which you got to do. And they have different hot pots all around China. My favorite is Sichuan or Chengdu hot pot. Now, another one for setting up another meeting would be 你 some date or time 有空吗? Do you have 空? Literally, do you have 空 just means empty. Do you have empty? It means do you have spare time at this date or time, right? So for example, 你周末有空吗? Do you have time at the weekend, spare time? And then of course you can follow up with 要不要一起去博物馆? For example, do you want to go to the museum together? 你明天下午 You tomorrow afternoon 有空吗? Have time. 要不要一起喝咖啡? Do you want to have a coffee? Now, whether you're setting up a next meeting or not, if maybe you feel that's appropriate at the time, maybe you don't, either way, you must get their contact info if you want to keep going with the conversation. So it doesn't really matter if you're talking online, but if you're face to face with someone, you've sparked up a conversation, it's going well. It's like, I like this person. We should definitely exchange contact info, right? The best way of doing that is by using the following phrases. So number one is 我们可以 we can or may 交换 swap 联系方式吗? Contact details or literally contact method. Ma. So 我们可以交换联系方式吗? Can we exchange contact information? Now, in English and Chinese, this is a bit more formal, right? So maybe in a business meeting, or maybe you're speaking to someone that you're interested in, maybe romantically, you want to sort of play it cool. I don't know. But either way, this one is fine to use, but just remember it's slightly on the formal side. The most common and most frequently used way of getting someone's contact info in China is 能加个微信吗? Can I add your WeChat? And that's just like a very casual way of getting their contact details. Everyone in China, every Chinese person has WeChat. So it's just the most common thing. So another way of asking it, slightly less formal, slightly less casual, I guess, but completely normal, would be 我可以 Can I, may I 加你的微信吗? Can I add your WeChat? All right, so then they'll bring out their QR code and you can scan them. And again, if you want to make this a little bit more polite, you can add 方便的话, right, on the beginning of it. So 方便的话可以加个微信吗? All right, so let me just break that down real quick. So 方便 is convenient, and 的话 is like of this speech, which means if, right? So if it's convenient, 方便的话 is just a way of making it more, as the Chinese would say, 委婉. 委婉 is sort of more roundabout, more polite. Now, once you've either got their contact info or you've set up the next meeting or both, you can end the conversation officially, right? So you can say something like, 那就下次见. So 下次见 is also okay by itself. See you next time, or literally next time, see, 下次见, right? But 那就 is a great sort of way of making it more like, well, see you next time then, you know, sort of making that kind of, giving that kind of feeling to what you're saying. 那就下次见. Then see you next time, right? Another one that's good is 我得走了, right? So I gotta go. 我得走了, I must leave. 我们下次再聊. Let's speak next time. Or, you know, you can also use 我们下次再见吧. Or, 那就下次见. You know, you can also add that on the end as well. But 我得走了, I gotta go. 我们下次再聊 is a really good one. 我们下次再聊, really common and natural sounding. And if you want to really make someone happy after you've just had a nice conversation with them, you can just say, 刚才 just now 聊得很开心. 聊得, so 聊 is to speak or chat. 的 is just describing that verb, describing that doing word. So I chatted with you 很开心. So I chatted very happily with you, or chatting with you made me happy, essentially. 希望 hope that 下次在某个地方 some sort of place. I hope that at this place 能见到你. I can see you there again, or I can see you at this place. So it's really hard to break that down in a way that makes sense. So let's just use an example sentence. 刚才聊得好开心, or 刚才聊得很开心. 希望下次在聚会上能见到你. Hope that we can see each other at the party. I had a great time chatting to you just now. 刚才聊得很开心, and I hope to see you at the next gathering. All right, so that is everything that you need to know about starting and maintaining amazing, meaningful interactions, conversations with native Chinese speakers. Do not forget to click the link in the description below and download the PDF and amazing audio files for all the examples, plus extra examples and a bonus dialogue or two I've added in there that didn't quite make it into the video. Go ahead and use that to properly acquire and practice everything that you've learned here today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.